me. That flower right in front of you is the angelic herb. I looked ahead of myself and saw what she was talking about. A white flower that gleamed in the little sunlight it received. I walked over to it and swiftly picked it. Then I ran back the way I came, wanting to get to Christopher more than anything. Christopher's POV. Diana has been out there for a while, searching for that one flower that would help Grace. I was worried, for both of them. I wanted to run outside and search for Diana, help her find the angelic herb. But Gianna said that she needed to face her demons out there and learn the truth. I didn't know what she meant, but thinking about it over and over again made it sound like Diana was in danger. It will be fine, Gianna stated. She'll come back safely with the flower. I looked at her and narrowed my eyes. You know, something has been itching at the back of my head. You're a witch, so why do you need potions when you can just flick your finger? Gianna smiled. That's true. I don't necessarily need potions, but this will help everything place itself in order. What do you mean? The witch ignored me and looked down at Grace's sleeping form. She's here. A second later, I heard the front door open and slam shut from downstairs. Then I heard the running of footsteps coming up the stairs and through the hall. I looked towards the hallway door and saw Diana standing there, holding out a flower while panting. Here, the flower, take it. Gianna snapped her fingers and the flower appeared in her hands. Thank you, Diana. Now, Christopher, go comfort our Luna. I nodded and gently took Diana's hand in mine. She stared at it with a horrified look, but then she calmed down. Did I scare her? Was she afraid of me? I shook my head and pulled Diana out of her bedroom. Then we walked down the hallway and entered mine. She went over to my bed, a lid on top. I smiled and joined her, pulling her close to my chest. You know, she panted, her minty breath fanning my neck as she spoke. It's obvious Grace is going to be staying here with us. I nodded. Of course, I wouldn't want to separate you two. I could feel Diana smile. You know what that means, right? She gets my run. Which means, I'll have to sleep and stay in your room. I looked down at her as my heart began to hammer against my chest. She was blushing and averting my gaze. Gosh, she was adorable. I kissed her on her forehead. I'm fine with that. I want you as close to me as possible. She snuggled deeper into my chest. Good. I began to rest my eyes, even though Diana kept shifting for some reason. It was like she was trying to get up. That's when I felt it. Sparks engulfed my body as my eyes snapped open. She was staring down at me with a crazy blush on her face. I chuckled. If I wasn't so tired, I'd kiss you back. Her blush got even redder. She swiftly went back to my chest and began to snuggle. You're so adorable, I said while resting my eyes again. And you're so cute, she mumbled. I smiled as I held her closer to me. What? Then fell into a peaceful sleep. The only thing I thought of was the kiss she had given me. Chapter 16. Diana's POV. I awoke from my sleep still cuddled in Christopher's arms. Then I remembered, I kissed him a couple of hours ago before we fell asleep. A heated blush crept up my neck at the memory. Why did I do that? How was I even that brave? That was the first kiss I ever gave anyone. Did that count as my first kiss? He didn't kiss me back, so why did I feel like a dragon was raging in my stomach? I shook my head of that thought and began to struggle to get out of Christopher's arms. But I failed miserably. It was like he was Popeye, as if he ate a whole can of spinach and became super strong. Wait a minute. Could he possibly be? No, what am I thinking? Christopher can't be a fictional cartoon character. I giggled as I tried to push myself away from Christopher. Release me, you stubborn bull. I sighed and began to scan the room for anything that could help me get out of Christopher's arms. That's when I saw it, a single feather sticking out of Christopher's pillow. I quickly plucked it and narrowed my eyes. All right, soldier, I whispered. Do your job. I dangled the feather over Christopher's nose and began to move it back and forth. At first, he just scrunched his nose, but then Christopher began to squirm on the bed, constantly scratching his nose. That's right, tickle, tickle, tickle. Christopher finally released his grip, and I quickly and stealthily rolled off the bed. Finally, I murmured. I got up from my knees and quickly began to tiptoe out of the bedroom. When I entered the hallway, I closed the door slowly and quietly, doing my best not to wake up Christopher. But when I was done with that, The thought came to me. What do I do now? Grace, Sophia stated in my head. I nodded and made my way to my old bedroom that Grace now slept in. When I opened the door, my eyes widened with shock. Grace, she was all better. She was no longer skin and bones. She looked like she did 3 years ago, healthy. And her cuts and bruises? They were all gone. It was as if a wizard or something in that category had came and healed her. I narrowed my eyes. Could it have been that deer that healed itself in the woods? I shook my head. No, it was Gianna, the pack witch. She used that angelic herb. I stepped into the bedroom and slowly made my way to the bed. Then I sat on the edge of it. Grace, I whispered. Her breathing was at a healthy state. And her skin colour wasn't pale, as it was when she showed up. I smiled when she stirred in her sleep. She was going to need a lot of rest, so I probably shouldn't wake her. I was about to get up off the bed until a familiar red ball of fur jumped onto the bed. Puppy Eric? The pup nodded and curled up into a ball, laying on top of Grace's stomach. Puppy Eric, I hissed quietly. Don't wake her up. Grace stirred a little, but didn't wake. Then her hand raised itself and rested on top of Puppy Eric's silky red fur. I couldn't help but smile. Okay, fine. You can stay in here, as long as you don't wake her up. The pup nodded and continued to lay on top of Grace's stomach, making me smile even more. I finally got up from the bed and exited the bedroom, shutting the door behind me slowly and quietly. Like a Diana. I jumped from fright and quickly turned towards the source of the voice. Alison? That must be why Puppy Eric was here. He didn't know where I was staying, and I left him with her. Alison, I whispered. What are you doing here? The small girl gave a sweet smile and walked up to me. I came to get you. We haven't hung out that much since you arrived. I nodded. Okay, so what do you want to do? Well, she started. Let's go to the park. I want to show you something. I nodded once again. So, okay, let's go. She smiled and grabbed my hand. Then she began to pull me through the hall and down the stairs until we reached the door. I quickly slipped my white flats on and exited the house with Alison. Then she pulled me and we continued to walk off Christopher's property and down the street to the park. As we continued to walk, I stared down at Alison. She was so cute and adorable and sweet. I could tell, just by looking at her, she would be beautiful when she got to my age. All the wolf boys would drool at her. Hopefully, she wouldn't become one of those girls who thought they were all that because of their looks. But as I continued to stare, I remembered something she had said to me that I needed to ask. Hey, Alison. Alison glanced back at me and smiled. Yeah? I gave a small smile. When I got here, what did you mean when you said I was the flowers? She stopped walking and turned to face me, a smile still evident on her face. Well, I told Big Brother Christopher that day to find a flower. I told him to find the most beautiful flower he saw. I was talking about you. My heart stopped. She was talking about me? How did she even know about me then? Then again, Christopher did tell me she had a gift that wasn't normal. What? I stuttered. How did you know about me? She continued to smile. Solomon told me. My body went cold. Solomon, my youngest brother? That wasn't possible. He died fighting. I remember burying his body next to my mother's grave. My little brother? She nodded as she still smiled. Yeah, I talked to him all the time. Tears pricked my eyes as I crouched down until I was at Alison's height. Then I placed my hands onto her shoulders. Bye, I croaked. She smiled. He's always with me. We talk for hours, all the time. In fact, he's right here, she said while pointing next to her. I looked to where she was pointing. There was nothing. The spot was empty. That's where it hit me. Could her gift possibly be that? Your gift? You can talk to ghosts. Alison's smile grew wider. How do you know? I thought Big Brother would have to explain that to you. I shook my head and got back onto my feet. It was hard to believe. Alison could talk to my brother, and I couldn't. It hurt. But I guess if she couldn't, I wouldn't be here. Alison grabbed my hand again and began to pull me along. My feet obeyed, but I felt like I couldn't look up anymore. All I did was hang my head. We continued to walk for who knows how long. All I thought about was Solomon. I could have saved him if I searched for him. He could be alive right now. He could have met Puppy Eric. He was dead because of me. We're here, Alison exclaimed, pulling me from my thoughts. I looked up to see the playground where I had met Melanie. where Christopher came to come pick me up. But, to my surprise, someone stood there. Only one person. Honor, I thought you had to show me something, I croaked. Allison nodded, and Gianna spoke up. We do, Luna. I looked at the witch as she held up her hand. Light began to pour from her palm and began to conjure a figure. I studied it until a figure was made. I nearly fell to my knees when a person was formed. Someone who I missed. Someone who I hadn't seen for over 10 years. Someone who used to tuck me in and sing me a lullaby when I couldn't sleep. And someone who had comforted me when I was scared or when I'd hurt myself. What? How? I sobbed. Gianna gave a sorrowful look. This is where your gift comes from, Luna. It all starts with him. Tears began to spill as I reached to touch the figure, but my hand just went through it. Father, I whimpered. What was the gift that I carried? So far, Sophia and Gianna had mentioned me having one. And now the witch shows me a figure of my father and says that I received the gift from him. Was it something that ran in our family? If so, why was I the only one who had it? I slipped my hand from Allison's and walked closer to Gianna, tears falling from my eyes. Wally Pars, how do you know who my father is? Gianna glanced at Allison, then back to me. It's not my story to tell. Yet you show me my dead father. You can't just. Gianna, Allison interrupted in a soft voice. It's my story to tell. I looked at Allison, tears still rolling from my eyes. What? She looked at her shoes, never looking up to me. Did you know that big brother Christopher isn't my real brother? I cocked my head. How could Allison not be Christopher's brother? They looked like they were related. What does this have to do with my dad? She looked up at me, her eyes watering. Your dad saved my life when I was a baby, right after I was born. I don't remember it myself, but my new dad, Christopher's dad, told me. My pack was attacked, and my mother carried me in her mouth when she shifted into her wolf. We escaped, but were chased down by the enemy wolves. Allison shuddered, as if she remembered it herself. They caught up to us and killed my mother. They were about to kill me, but your dad showed up and killed them all. My body felt cold. It was hard to believe that Allison, a little girl around 8 years old, had met my father. When did it happen? Allison looked into my eyes. At that moment, she looked mature. She looked as if she were older than me. 8 years ago. So Dad saved her when I was 10. But I don't remember him being gone at all when I was that age. This was all just confusing. It couldn't be possible. I turned back to Gianna, pouring as much confidence as I could into the next few words I would be saying. Show me. Gianna gave a small smile. Of course, Luna. But this will be an experience you have never faced before. I nodded and clenched my hands. Okay. I'm ready. Chapter 7. Okay. I'm ready. Around us, the wind picked up and the sky turned grey. My hair began to blow to one side and the swing sets began to rustle as the wind grew stronger. Gianna's smile widened. She closed her hand, causing the image of my father to fade. Then she held out her other hand to me, beckoning me to take hold of it. Hesitantly, I took it. Then she closed her eyes and began to mumble things that sounded like gibberish. Before I knew it, my surroundings disappeared and blackness enveloped me. Allison was gone, and so was Gianna. All I could see was a golden light erupting from pure darkness. Fear immediately struck through me. I hated it when I was alone, especially in the dark. This felt like when I was trying to establish a connection with Christopher, except this was much more frightening. I could imagine that I wouldn't be able to mind-link Christopher like this. Sophia, I murmured, fear slipping in my voice. Nothing. Just an endless silence. I was truly alone. I looked around the dark void for anything except the erupting golden light. But there was only darkness. I swallowed down the lump that had formed in my throat and took cautious steps towards the light. It was scary, really. The dark seemed more comforting than it. I stopped right in front of the light, mere inches away from touching it. Should I reach out to grasp it? Usually at this point, Sophia would want me to turn back and I would go against her idea. But right now, I felt small. I wanted to cower into the endless darkness. But you need to touch it to find out the truth, I thought. I slowly reached out, letting my hand and arm be engulfed by the bright light. The golden light was cool as water. I at least expected it to be warm or hot. Then, out of nowhere, the light began to grow brighter. At first, it was as bright as a star. Then, it was as bright as the sun. I tried to pull my hand away, but it was stuck. It felt like something was holding me down, like superglue. Immediately, panic surged through my body. What was I going to do? The light kept getting brighter and brighter while I was stuck in place. I felt like it was going to incinerate me. Christopher! I screamed for help as I continued to pull. I knew he wouldn't be able to save me from this, though. I pulled once more, but the opposite of what I wished to happen occurred. The light started to suck me in. No! I screeched. Let go. Gianna, help me. No answer as I was being pulled in. By this point, my legs were being devoured by the light, as was both my arms. But I wouldn't give up. I kept struggling, but it was no use. When I realized I wouldn't be getting out of this one, I leaned my head back to peer into the forever darkness as a tear raced down my cheek. Christopher, I whispered. Ilp. A moment later, I was completely covered by the glowing light. It swirled around me, making it look as if I was under the stars. But then, it began to fade into a scene. Trees began to surround me, as well as small buildings and a fence line. I recognized this place. It was my home, my pack. Around me, kids were playing. A girl ran around, picking every flower she saw. A boy sat in the grass, sketching pictures, and 2 boys were wrestling. The boy who seemed to be winning the wrestling match had brown, bushy hair and green eyes, where the other boy who seemed to be losing had short brown hair and hazel eyes. Yay! Yay! The bushy-haired boy shouted with glee while getting off of the other boy. I win. Now I get to have the yo-yo. The other boy stood and brushed off his shirt, which was covered in dirt. I was going easy on you, Hanky. If I showed you my real strength, you would fear me. The boy named Hanky laughed. Yeah, right. I'm the son of the beta. Son of the beta? Then that must mean Hanky. I turned to where the voice had came from. Standing there was a tall man with a small beard and brown hair. He had brown eyes and some power that seemed to radiate off of him. Tears welled up in my eyes at the sight of him. That was my dad, before he had died. Yeah, Daddy? Hanky called. Daddy? So Hanky was Hank, my older brother. Dad smiled. Your mother is back with the baby. Would you like to meet your new sister? Hanky's eyes lit up. Whis. Ooh, yes. He shouted as he began to run to his dad. Hanky was coming right at me. I would have said, watch out, or be careful. But the little boy went right through my body and stopped at the side of our father. They couldn't see me. They couldn't touch me. I was a ghost to them. Hanky looked at the other boy and smiled. Bye, Paul. Ooh. I glanced at the other boy, my eyes as wide as the moon. That little boy, Paul, he would be the murderer of my pack. My killer. I turned back to my father and Hanky, only to see them walking off. I quickly ran to catch up to them. When I was caught up, I listened to their conversation. What does she look like? Hanky asked excitedly. I don't know, I haven't seen her yet. All I know is that her name is Diana. I froze as they continued walking. I was the baby. I completely forgot that I was born after Hank. I caught up to them once again just as they were entering our house. I slipped past them and through the door. The next thing I saw brought a smile to my face. My mother in a dress, singing to a bundle as she walked around the house. Dad and Hanky walked past me and straight to Mom. Mummy. Hanky shouted with excitement evident in his voice. He ran to Mum and began to bounce up and down while reaching for the bundle in her arms. Let me see. Let me see. Mum laughed and crouched. Okay. But you must be quiet. Her ears are sensitive. Hanky nodded ferociously. Then he looked at the bundle in Mum's arms. Wrapped in the bundle was a baby that seemed like it was smiling. But it shocked me. Not because she was smiling, but because of her appearance. She had green eyes and brown hair. How is that even possible? That baby was me, right? Last I checked, I have blonde hair and blue eyes. Hanky smiled and stepped back from the baby and Mom. Then he put his hand over his heart and bowed his head. I, Hanky Jones, solemnly swear that I will protect my little sister, Diana Jones, with my life. Dad and Mom laughed. That's a big promise, kid, Dad said. Are you sure? Hanky nodded. Whis. I swore, didn't I? I couldn't help but laugh. Hanky was so nice to me when we were kids. I guess that promise was why. Dad gently picked up my baby self and cuddled her. Oh, Diana, you're going to be Daddy's little girl. My eyes began to water. I missed him. I miss my dad. All of a sudden, everything began to fade. Our living room began to disappear as well as my family. "No," I shouted. "Don't take them away again." I reached for Hanky, but my hand went straight through him. No, 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 no. I can't lose them again. I tried to grasp Mom's dress, but again my hand went through. Then I tried to embrace my dad. No luck. I crumpled to my knees as they faded, letting tears run down my face. "I love you, Diana." I looked up at my father. He was still smiling and cuddling my baby self in his arms. "I will always love you." More tears ran down my cheeks. "I love you too, Dad." Everything faded into a different scene. Instead of being in our house with my family, I was outside, crumpled in the large grass. "This experience isn't done yet?" I asked, disbelief in my voice. I slowly stood and wiped away my tears with the back of my hand. Then I looked around, trying to figure out where I was. I could tell that I was still in the pack territory because I was in front of my house. But then why did everything fade? Out of nowhere, a boy ran out from behind our house, giggling and flailing his arms everywhere, while his brown locks bounced and his green eyes showed delight. "Hanky," I whispered. "You're taller." Bounding after him was a small girl with brown, wavy hair and green eyes. She was squealing and kept stumbling on her small feet. "Come back here, Hanky." She squealed with a lisp evident in her voice. "Come and get me, sis." Hanky giggled. "Is that girl me?" It had to be. Hanky and the girl continued to run around in circles until our front door opened. Mum, wait," I questioned, though none of them could hear me. Dad came striding out the house while holding Mum's hand. "Hanky," Dad said while smiling. "We have a big job for you." Hanky's face lit up, and he ran towards Mum and Dad until he was right in front of them. Then he saluted. "Sir." "Yes, sir." The little girl giggled and ran until she was next Hanky. Then she copied his movements. "Sir." "Yes, sir." She mimicked. Dad laughed and picked her up. Then he began to tickle her, causing her to squeal with delight. "Not you, Diana. Hanky's big job is to watch over you." Hanky smiled. "Yay! I can do it." Mom laughed and Dad joined in while placing Mini-Me down. "Watch her carefully, Hanky. She's only 3, Mom said. My brother frowned and crossed his arms. "I can do it. I'm 8. I'm a man." "He's a man. He's a man." Baby Diana screamed with joy. Our parents laughed and intertwined their hands. "If you need anything, we'll be at the neighbor's house, okay?" Hanky nodded and our parents left, walking hand in hand to the next house over. I don't remember Mum and Dad leaving us alone like this. Why would they even leave their children? "So what do you want to do, Diana?" Hanky questioned with excitement. "Well," she said while twirling her hair between her fingers, "I want to gather." Hanky seemed taken aback. "Gather? Yeah," Diana exclaimed. "I want to be a gatherer when I grow up." I laughed at the silly dream I had when I was little. I can't believe I wanted to be a gatherer. It did make sense though, because I was a horrible hunter. Hanky sighed. "Okay. The first step to being a gatherer is to use your senses to find a plant." Mini-Me nodded and lifted her head towards the sky, as if sniffing the air. Then a moment later she dashed to the back of our house, with Hanky and I in pursuit. She finally stopped running, allowing us to catch up. Mini-Me was fast for a 3-year-old. Baby Diana reached down to the ground and plucked something. Then she turned to Hanky and held out a rainbow-coloured flower. "Is this a good plant?" Hanky eyed the flower carefully, as if it was dangerous. "I don't know. I've never seen a flower like that." Instead of placing the flower back onto the ground, Baby Me studied it. "How do I find out it's safe?" she asked with a lisp. "Well, the older pack members test it by nibbling the end of the stem, but you're—" Before any of us knew it, Mini-Me took a bite of the stem. "No!" Hanky shouted. "Diana, what are you thinking?" She said nothing. She just stood there, staring at Hanky. What was I thinking at that moment? That plant could be dangerous. Hanky," she stuttered. I don't feel so good." Baby Diana crumpled to the ground, catching both Hanky and I off guard. My brother quickly jumped to her aid and placed her head on his lap. "What hurts?" he asked frantically. My tummy, and my throat." Hanky's eyes widened. Oh, don't worry, I'll link Mummy and Daddy. Soon his eyes clouded over. Poor Hanky, I must have worried him a lot when we were kids. Okay, Hanky said, as soon as his eyes returned to their normal colour. They're on their way. Hanky, Minnie-Me groaned. I'm sorry. My brother shook his head. Don't be, it's not your fault, it's mine. It's not your fault, Hank, why are you blaming yourself? I was the stupid one to eat the plant. A moment later, Mom and Dad ran to us at inhuman speed. Then my father swooped my baby self into his arms. She's barely breathing, Dad gasped. We have to take her to the witch. Mom nodded and turned to Hank. It's okay, Hanky. Go inside and don't do anything dangerous. Hanky nodded with tears in his eyes and ran inside the back door of our house. Then a second later, Mum and took off, their speed faster than the speed of a cheetah. I struggled to keep up. We ran past trees, up and down hills, and across a river until we stopped at the wall of a mountain. On the side of its rocky surface, a curtain was draped as well as dream catchers. She not breathing, Mum bellowed. Dad's eyes widened at the sight of baby me. She was a lifeless body. A heap of nothing. Just the sight of her made my skin grow cold. Had I died? If I did, how was I still a living, breathing girl who had found her mate? Mum and Dad rushed inside the curtain, me in pursuit. What I saw caught me by surprise. Past the curtain was a cave that was lighted with candles. It was also decorated with dream catchers, worn-out books, a giant cauldron seeping with green smoke, and several plants and insects on a shelf. Judy, Mum called. A woman with messy hair and large glasses that were cracked popped her head around the corner of the cave. Garner? Yeah? What are you guys doing here? Honor, I totally forgot my mother's name. And not only that, but she shared the name of the witch in Christopher's pack. I'm really stupid. Judy, please help us. Our daughter, she's not breathing, Mum pleaded. Judy raised her eyebrows and nodded. Then she stepped from around the corner and made her way to my parents, which gave me a good view of her. She was in a light, loose sweater and some khakis, and her messy hair was accessorized with pencils. She basically looked like a librarian. When she reached us, she looked at baby me. Then she placed her hand on my forehead. A frown covered her face. I'm sorry, but your daughter, well, she's dead. My breath hitched and I broke into a cold sweat. I had died. But how am I alive then? Mum gasped and crumpled to the ground, tears rolling down her cheeks. She wailed as if her heart was broken. Dad just stood there, cradling my small body as a tear raced down his cheek. This couldn't be real. I couldn't be dead. I crumpled to the ground and watched as my parents mourned over me. There has to be a way, Dad wailed. She can't die. Judy looked at my parents with a pained expression. There is one way to bring her back, but she will be different. Dad shot his head up to Judy, hope in his eyes. I don't care. I just want my little girl back. Judy gave them a look of pity before she nodded. Then she snapped her fingers. A small plant shot from the shelf and floated above her fingers. Since she's dead, she can't eat this. So one of you must eat it and give her your blood. You will gain a power, and so will she. But she will be different. Stranger than the rest of your pack. Dad and Mom nodded simultaneously. I'll eat it, Dad said. Anything for her. Judy nodded and snapped her fingers once again. The plant drifted to Dad and stopped right in front of his face. He took a deep breath before biting into it. Are you ready? Judy questioned. Dad nodded and gave my baby self to the witch. As Judy held me carefully in her arms, she mumbled some gibberish. Then, all of a sudden, a knife that seemed like it was made during the medieval times appeared in my father's hand. You don't have to give yourself a large cut, just prick your finger and get the blood to go into her mouth. Dad nodded and did just that. He pricked his finger and put it over my mouth just as the blood was about to drip. The drop of blood fell into my baby self's mouth. Moments passed and nothing happened, causing my mother to continue her crying. But then, something happened. My younger self's hair turned from brown to blonde, the same colour I had now. Diana, my mother gasped. Minnie-Me began to stir in Judy's arms. Then her eyes opened, showing the same colour I had now, electric blue. I had died, and because my father ate that plant and gave me his blood, I was brought back from the dead. Mummy? Yeah? Daddy, where are we? I laughed just as Dad began to. Then he took me into his arms as tears fell from his eyes. What's wrong? Minnie asked. Dad shook his head and held me tighter. Nothing, sweetheart. Nothing. The scene began to fade. But I wasn't upset like last time. I was happy. Thanks, Dad, I whispered through my grateful smile. For everything. This time, instead of seeing another scene from my past, all I saw was the golden light swirling around me. Open your eyes. Christopher. Can I mind link him? Does he even know about what I'm doing right now? Open your eyes. I nodded and thought only of Christopher. I thought of when he had crashed into me and we found out we were mates. I thought of when he pushed Brent down the stone steps of his parents' house. I thought of how he even protected me from Alfred. All the things that made me love him. I love him. I finally opened my eyes and smiled at what I saw. I was on Christopher's lap in his living room with Brent, Melanie, Kate, and some other guy. But they didn't seem important at the time, only Christopher. Are you okay, Diana? Christopher asked with concern in his voice. I ignored the question. Christopher? Yes? I raised my head up to his and gave him a passionate kiss, which he quickly responded to. I didn't care that people were watching us. He was all that mattered to me at the moment. I pulled away sooner than I wanted to and took a deep breath. I love you. Chapter 18. Diana's POV. One thing bothered me at this moment, one thing that I had no idea how to react to. And that was the guy holding hands with Kate. He had dark, almost black hair with pale skin, as well as darker than normal brown eyes. In other words, he was a perfect Nico D'Angelo. He stared at me, emotionless, as if I was his next experiment. Then he finally opened his mouth. Are you ever going to get off of Christopher's lap? I blushed and Brent snorted while Kate giggled. Geez, wait to say hello. I quickly hopped off Christopher's lap and sat on the cushion next to him, leaning against his shoulder. Then Kate stepped forward. Diana, this is my mate, Baron. Baron gave me a sup nod before he let Kate continue. Baron, this is Diana. She's the new Luna. And a Greek. Baron actually laughed and wrapped his arm around Kate's waist. Oh, so she gets on your nerves already? I cocked my eyebrow as I watched their little conversation. What's going on? Christopher laughed and put his arm around me. Nothing. This is how they usually are. I nodded and continued to watch. Maybe, Kate said, looking up into Baron's eyes. He smirked. Maybe I can fix that. My mouth dropped as a heated blush crept up my neck. Did he mean, whoa, 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 Melanie shouted while separating the couple. If you guys didn't notice, we're in the Alpha's house. And plus, our Luna is a little bit innocent if you haven't noticed, so calm yourselves. We all laughed, and Brent snaked his arm around Melanie's waist. Come now, must we be so formal? She turned to him and flicked his nose, making him flinch. If you act the same as the Roman, I'll kill you. He let go of her waist and held up his hands. Dang, babe, I didn't mean to. Before any of us knew it, Melanie punched Brent in the face, sending him straight into the wall. I'm not your babe. Everyone laughed. But Christopher leaned over to me and whispered in my ear. So why were you sleeping in the park with Gianna? I looked at him, ignoring the conversation our friends were having. What? Gianna linked me. She said you were exhausted and told me to pick you up at the park. I went there and found you lying on the ground, while Gianna sat there and watched you. She told me to carry you home before waking you up. I looked into his hazel eyes with the green specks. Should I tell him? Should I tell him everything I saw? Oh, well, she used a power to show me my past. He stared back into my eyes, showing only curiosity. Is that it? I nodded. What? It was true. She showed me my past. I just didn't want him to know about how I died and resurrected and how I'm different. He looked away, back at